This isn't just a general guide or overview of any sort. Instead, I'm going to be going through a big issue that players face that isn't really talked about enough, and it's how to play DST with other people. Unfortunately, as a PC player myself, I can only really speak to the PC side of the server hosting and things like that. So a lot of what I say is probably not going to translate all too well to console don't starve together. Unfortunate, but there's not much that I can do about that. On the surface, this might seem straightforward. You know, you just go to browse game, join a server, have a fun time, or alternatively host your own. But there are a couple problems that become apparent as a casual player. These worlds are not consistent, and they may not be the most populated or the most reliable. So this raises the question, what then do you do if you're looking to play with other people? Hopefully this lays out your options, and maybe you find a new community or two to hang out in as a result of it. But I feel like before this video goes any further, I feel like it's important to bring up internet safety. You know, obviously, if I'm going to recommend you play Don't Starve with other people, you're going to be exposed to random strangers on the internet, and you might not always know what their intentions are. They might be trying to scam you, they might be trying to, you know, steal personal data, whatever. So remember to always keep your own personal data close to your chest, so to speak, and be cautious when it comes to interacting with other people online. You know, just don't give out personal information all willy-nilly, I guess, is the TLDR of what I'm trying to say. But moving on, let's cover the biggest and most apparent options first in regards to joining other people, as well as what makes them good and what makes them bad. So we can start off with public servers, those being the ones that are just hosted by random people, you know, the ones that pop up whenever you press browse games. And for the sake of brevity, we could also lump in hosting your own server and allowing random people to join as well. Public servers have a couple downsides, with the biggest one being its reliance on hardware and internet connection being subject to quite a few variables. It's not a guarantee that in any random server, you're going to have the best connection or that they have the best PC to handle multiple people on a server. So unless you get lucky, these are often too variable in quality to really recommend in any consistent capacity. If you're hosting, however, things tend to be a bit different, since the only thing you have to worry about is how good your hardware is. Though as host, I'd highly recommend having a wired connection. This might just be fighting game player brain, but in my opinion at least, it doesn't really matter how good your connection is. Having a wired connection just provides a more stable and consistent experience for everybody in your server. It goes a long way to benefit everybody else in regards to at least getting accustomed to the latency that is present. The next one has a couple issues that are shared between servers hosted by other players, but at the same time, Klei official servers remove the factors of stable hardware and connection, providing consistent connection as well as being able to handle large amount of players at any given point. The aforementioned problem that these two private and both Klei official servers share is the impermanence that comes with the nature of the servers. You can't really join these servers expecting them to be a long-term commitment, simply due to the fact that people are going to log in while you're gone, and potentially even shut down the server by dying, or alternatively, in the case of public/hosted servers, you can't really expect that the people that are a part of them to rejoin or stick around over long periods of time, simply due to the fact that everyone's schedules are different in some way, and that tends to get in the way of continuing a server. So what can you do about this? As far as I can tell, the only really thing that you can do about this is accept that these options are what they are, that being just a fun place to hop in, practice something, rush some stuff, whatever you can do within a reasonable time frame. However you can manage to do it. This is a bit less desirable to say the least, at least in my opinion. Playing with others for extended periods is how you make friends after all, and playing together is quite literally in the name of the game. So what gives? What's the solution here? How do you find a group of people who you can talk to consistently and are willing to play the game with you? Well, this is where the real topic of the video comes in, and it's to promote the good places to find and play with people online that I've encountered in my experience playing Don't Starve. Starting off with probably the most apparent, we have the various amounts of Discord servers. Discord servers are the prime location for finding groups of people trying to accomplish the same task, with its primary benefit being in its ability to facilitate seamless connections, seamless communication, both in and out of the game. The servers that come to mind immediately are the official Klei Discord, and it's not terribly often that people start a server and sit in call channels, but it's an often enough occurrence in a pretty controlled environment for me to feel like it's worth recommending. The people on the server can be a bit, let's say a little silly, you know, a bit goofy if you will, but they're more often than not willing to help out new players with problems that they might have. But do be prepared to get hit with comments like skill issue and things like that. That kind of goes, you know, hand in hand with the nature of the server. So I wouldn't really think anything of it if you do get hit with a skill issue from time to time, you know, it's not that big of a deal. You know, all that being said, this is not one of the best places that I'm going to recommend in regards to playing with other people, simply due to the fact that most of the people here are already super into the game. So if you're trying to learn and play it somewhat casually, you might have a harder time. Though that isn't to say that the official Klei server isn't good, as in my experience at least, this is a really good place for talking about the game and finding out new strats, as well as getting the lowdown on what's new and what's interesting about characters. You know, it's really good for discussions, but I have a hard time recommending it for the gameplay aspects of it. The next one is a bit more favorable towards playing with other people, and that's the Don't Starve Unofficial Discord server. This is a server which I unfortunately can't speak too much on in regards to recent trends, but nevertheless, it's a pretty good place to join in on worlds, with people of varying degrees of skills and experience playing the game. I'd recommend joining the server for games if you want a quick and easy way to get in call with other players, and work towards a goal, but it can't be guaranteed that people will rejoin or rehost an already established server. Ultimately, this is a great place to find those people who are willing to join in, but in my experience, people tend to be willing to hang out to play Don't Starve over a long period of time in private calls more than in the public calls of this server. Obviously, be aware and practice internet safety once again when interacting with anybody online. Careful not to click on any suspicious links or give out personal information or anything like that. But ultimately, if you're trying to find a dedicated group of people who you could play Don't Starve with, this is definitely the place to find those people at. Next up is the Don't Starve Survivors Discord. This server has the added benefit of hosting its own servers for their players to join, with these tending to be vanilla servers. So if you're used to some quality of life mods like global positions, you might feel like something's missing, but overall this is a really solid group of people who are both willing to help out new players and willing to provide the location to do so. This server is actually a bit more chill than the others, in my opinion, and feels very tight-knit in the same vein. It's exactly what people would want to relax and have a fun time with, and this group also does host their own servers once again, which you might have actually seen in the Browse Games category. The DST parenthetical vanilla servers are pretty varied and tend to have a much higher maximum player limit than what is normally allowed, which can be good since you can play with tons of people and work together to accomplish goals and set up bases. I'd highly recommend giving them a visit if you can, since they do a lot for the DST community in providing these servers, with probably the best ping I've seen in most any DST server. So major props to them. Lastly is my personal favorite, just because of, you know, my personal preference as a player, which is the Meow Together Discord server. I probably spend the most time on this server, at least in regards to the servers it hosts, because similarly to the Don't Starve Survivors Discord server, as previously mentioned, this also provides their own servers, which relieve the burden of hosting from the individuals trying to play with other people. This is one of the few servers that I feel are conducive of a long-term world, just due to some of the features that they offer. While other servers have the benefit of being vanilla, meaning you're not really going to be expecting any major changes or shifts away from the gameplay that you're used to, this server has tons of mods that are primarily meant to be focused on quality of life features, though this isn't necessarily a downside to those who are just trying to play the game with no major changes. These servers all share the same benefits of being moderated at most hours of the day, with private bots for server management helping with those efforts. They also do have the ability to view the game logs via their Discord, which is super useful for keeping track of what's going on for the player's side. Lastly, and this is my personal favorite, they also allow you to save and load worlds from those servers. So if you're playing in a server that you want to keep on playing, you can use the .save command in the game to save that point in the world. And once you're back, once you've stepped away for a bit, you just need to rejoin one of their empty servers and type .load in order to start that world back up. This leads to the ability to have long-term worlds in what is essentially a public server, which is huge. So just to recap, what I'd recommend out of these servers While each one has its benefits, a couple of them stand out a bit more when it comes to specific things that you might be looking for. So the TLDR, the Klei official Discord is a great place to find info and ask questions and have discussions about the game, and more often you do get what you're looking for whenever you decide to talk to these people. The DS Unofficial Discord is where you go to hang out with other people in call and establish DST friend groups, in my experience. The DST Survivors is a good place to chill out and maybe try rushing bosses, events, things like that, with a new group. Maybe practice learning things that you might have shakier knowledge on, or just trying new characters and new strats. And lastly, if you want to be there for a good and long time, Meow Together servers are definitely the way to go. I do want to have some honorable mentions in case Discord isn't your cup of tea, starting off with live streams. The DST community has quite a bit of players who are gracious enough to host their own servers and stream them, in which they can go for rushing things, mega basing, or even just a casual playthrough. This option is really good for the schedule and the personality that these streams bring, as well as having a one-sided way of communicating when you might not feel like talking but still want to have that avenue of communication available to you. Do be sure to check this channel's rules though, since people might not be a playing with viewer type of streamer and don't like having to answer when people ask to join en masse. So, just be courteous of the streamer, don't give them a hard time or anything like that, and respect their rules as they set them out. Next up is dedicated groups on other sites. I know things like Reddit has some pages, or whatever they're called, where they just have people asking for games or posting about the topic, and that could be a good place to find people, though in my own personal experience though, people tend to get ghosted a lot there, unfortunately. So I'd recommend just going through the Discord route personally, but it's nice to know that these options at least exist. That's all I really have to say about the topic of finding groups to play with. I know this is something that people tend to struggle with, and I just want to finish it off by saying, don't be a weirdo when it comes to these places. Like, treat everybody on the internet with as much respect as is warranted, and remember to practice internet safety in every interaction that you have. Don't be giving out personal information or anything like that. Don't come into a situation hostile because you don't like someone's profile picture or whatever. And overall, just remember to have a good time. Just, try to be as good of a person as you can. Hopefully this helped you out in some way or even just introduced you to some new places to try. But once again, that's all I wanted to say. So until next time, bye-bye.